One of the most infamous unsolved murder mysteries in American history is the case of Elizabeth Short, better known as the Black Dahlia. This gruesome crime, which took place in Los Angeles in 1947, has captivated the public's imagination for decades, spawning countless books, movies, and theories. Despite intense media coverage and numerous investigations, the identity of her killer remains a mystery. Elizabeth Short was born on July 29, 1924 in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. She was the third of 5 daughters born to Cleo and Phoebe May Short. Her father, Cleo, ran a successful business constructing miniature golf courses until the Great Depression struck, leading to the business's collapse. In 1930, Cleo's car was found abandoned on the Charlestown Bridge, and he was presumed dead, an apparent suicide. However, he was very much alive and had faked his death to start a new life in California. This event significantly impacted the Short family, particularly Elizabeth, who would later follow her father to the West Coast in search of a better life. Elizabeth was a beautiful young woman with aspirations of becoming an actress. After dropping out of Medford High School during her sophomore year, she moved to Florida to live with friends during the winter months, returning to Massachusetts in the summer. In 1942, she moved to Vallejo, California, to live with her father, whom she had reconnected with after he wrote an apologetic letter to her mother. The reunion was short-lived, as Elizabeth and her father clashed, leading her to move out and begin a transient life in Los Angeles. Elizabeth struggled to make ends meet in Los Angeles, working as a waitress and occasionally relying on the generosity of men she met. She became part of the city's nightlife, frequenting bars and clubs, always dressed impeccably in black, which earned her the nickname the Black Dahlia among the local press. Despite her dreams of stardom, Elizabeth's life in Hollywood was far from glamorous. On the morning of January 15, 1947, Betty Bersinger, a housewife, was walking with her young daughter in the Leimert Park neighborhood of Los Angeles when she came across what she initially thought was a discarded store mannequin. Upon closer inspection, she realized it was the body of a young woman, severed at the waist and gruesomely mutilated. Terrified, Bersinger ran to a nearby house and called the police. When the police arrived, they were confronted with a horrific sight. The body had been neatly bisected at the waist, and the two halves were placed about a foot apart. The corpse had been drained of blood, and the skin was a ghastly white. There were deep lacerations on the face extending from the corners of the mouth to the ears, creating a grotesque Glasgow smile. The body showed signs of torture, with cuts and bruises covering the flesh. Despite the mutilation, there was no blood at the scene, indicating that the murder had taken place elsewhere, and the body had been carefully cleaned before being posed in the vacant lot. The police identified the victim as Elizabeth Short through fingerprints, which had been on file due to a previous arrest for underage drinking. The press quickly picked up on the story, sensationalizing the murder and dubbing Elizabeth the Black Dahlia. The case became an instant media sensation, with the lurid details of the crime and Elizabeth's mysterious life captivating the nation. The Los Angeles Police Department, or LAPD, launched one of the largest investigations in its history, but the case was fraught with difficulties from the start. The crime scene had been compromised by the media and onlookers before the police could secure it, leading to the possible contamination of evidence. Despite these setbacks, the LAPD interviewed hundreds of suspects and pursued numerous leads, but the case quickly grew cold. One of the most disturbing aspects of the case was the involvement of the killer in the media frenzy. On January 24, 1947, 9 days after the body was discovered, a package was sent to the Los Angeles Examiner, one of the newspapers covering the story. The package contained Elizabeth's birth certificate, photos, business cards, and an address book with the name Mark Hansen embossed on the cover. The items had been carefully cleaned with gasoline, a tactic the killer had used on the body to remove fingerprints. A handwritten note, constructed from letters cut out of newspaper headlines, read, "Here is Dahlia's belongings letter to follow." Mark Hansen was a Hollywood nightclub and theater owner who had known Elizabeth Short. She had stayed at his home on several occasions, and the two were reportedly close. Hansen was questioned by the police but denied any involvement in the murder. He claimed that Elizabeth had left the address book at his home, which might explain why it was in the killer's possession. Hansen was eventually cleared as a suspect, but his connection to Elizabeth kept him under public scrutiny. Over the years, several suspects were proposed and confessions were made, but none were substantiated. One suspect, Dr. George Hodel, a prominent Los Angeles physician, has gained significant attention in recent years, primarily due to the efforts of his son, Steve Hodel, a retired LAPD homicide detective. Steve Hodel has spent years investigating his father's possible involvement in the Black Dahlia case as well as other unsolved murders, and has published several books on the subject. Dr. George Hodel was a well-connected and wealthy man with a dark side. He was known for hosting wild parties at his Hollywood mansion, where drug use and sexual experimentation were common. In 1949, he was accused of molesting his 14-year-old daughter, Tamar, but was acquitted. The allegations and subsequent trial brought him under police scrutiny, but they could not link him to the Black Dahlia murder. Steve Hodel's investigation revealed that his father had been a suspect in the original investigation, but the LAPD had dropped the case due to a lack of evidence and Hodel's powerful connections. In his books, Steve Hodel presents circumstantial evidence that suggests his father was not only the Black Dahlia killer, but also responsible for other unsolved murders in Los Angeles. This evidence includes a photograph album that Steve discovered after his father's death, which contained images of a woman who closely resembled Elizabeth Short. He also points to his father's knowledge of surgical techniques, which would explain the precise manner in which the body was bisected. Additionally, Steve Hodel believes that his father's connections to the Los Angeles art world, particularly the Surrealist movement, may have influenced the way the body was posed. Despite Steve Hodel's compelling arguments, the case remains officially unsolved. The LAPD has never confirmed Dr. George Hodel as a suspect, and many experts remain skeptical of the theory. Over the years, dozens of other suspects have been proposed, including several who falsely confessed to the crime, seeking attention or trying to avoid other charges. The Black Dahlia case has left an indelible mark on American popular culture. The brutal nature of the crime, combined with Elizabeth Short's tragic life and the endless speculation surrounding the case, has inspired numerous works of fiction and nonfiction. The case has been the subject of books, films, television shows, and even video games, each offering a different take on the mystery. In 1987, novelist James Ellroy published The Black Dahlia, a fictionalized account of the case that became a bestseller and was later adapted into a 2006 film directed by Brian De Palma. Ellroy, whose mother was murdered in a similar fashion in 1958, has stated that the Black Dahlia case deeply influenced his work, fueling his obsession with crime and the darker aspects of human nature. The case also served as a grim reminder of the dangers faced by women, particularly those pursuing fame in Hollywood. Elizabeth Short's story is often seen as a cautionary tale about the perils of seeking stardom in a city known for its harsh realities and predatory figures. The media's sensationalization of her life and death, including the emphasis on her supposed promiscuity and the lurid details of the crime, has been criticized as misogynistic and exploitative. In the decades since her death, Elizabeth Short has become a symbol of lost innocence and the dark side of the American dream. Her life, filled with aspirations and disappointments, and her death, marked by unimaginable violence, continue to fascinate and horrify people to this day. Despite the passage of time, the search for the Black Dahlia's killer continues. Advances in forensic science, particularly DNA analysis, have raised hopes that the case could one day be solved. In recent years, cold case investigators have re-examined evidence from the crime scene, including letters sent by the killer, in the hopes of finding new leads. However, the degradation of evidence over time and the possibility that key items were lost or destroyed have made progress difficult. The Black Dahlia case remains one of the most enduring, unsolved mysteries in American history. Elizabeth Short's murder, with its mix of horror, glamour, and intrigue, captures the imagination in a way few other crimes have. As long as the case remains unsolved, the legend of the Black Dahlia will continue to grow, keeping alive the hope that one day the truth will finally be revealed. The murder of Elizabeth Short, known as the Black Dahlia, remains one of the most haunting and perplexing unsolved mysteries in American history. Despite extensive investigations, numerous suspects, and the passage of more than 7 decades, the identity of her killer continues to elude both law enforcement and the public. The gruesome nature of the crime, paired with the tragic story of Elizabeth's life and the intense media frenzy that followed, has ensured that this case remains a subject of enduring fascination. The Black Dahlia case is more than just a murder mystery. It is a reflection of the darker side of Hollywood's allure and the dangers that lurk beneath the surface of the American dream. Elizabeth Short's story serves as a poignant reminder of the vulnerability of those who seek fame and fortune in a city where dreams are often shattered. As advances in forensic science offer a glimmer of hope for solving the case, the possibility of finally unmasking the killer keeps the legend of the Black Dahlia alive. Until that day comes, the story of Elizabeth Short will continue to captivate the imagination, ensuring that her name and the mystery surrounding her death will never be forgotten.